Are you a gardener at home that cycles throughout the year, things are fine, but then that one cycle, your plants just have a horrible time latching onto the soil and growing? They're yellowing, the stems are turning purple. That is salt lockout. This Air Max. You're never gonna get a high EC coconut fiber. And each pallet is quality controlled up to 3 times before it leaves the facility. All the bags are dated, so we know when they were made. Go ahead and take a look at the Coconut Connoisseur. So it's gonna have a little bit more of an aeration capability over the Coco Forest, so it's a great blend for those going into the fall and the winter. And as you can see, we've got the pumice here, because it's volcanic pumice, has the silica, but it also has somewhat porosity as well. So it really adds to balancing out the moisture throughout the mix, and as well as draining the moisture through the mix to make sure that everything's as even as possible. So Monster Gardens source these products through Heavy Harvest. Heavy Harvest is a company that's come to the market to bring quality back and a standard back that has not existed before. And we have 3 mixes here. The Air Max is the mix that's more for the hydro gardener, the guy that wants no food, no organics, strictly wants to grow synthetically. It's the mix for him. You can use a really high EC formula knowing that the cocoa is the best quality cocoa and you're never gonna have salt content in your mix due to the cocoa. You might have seen that with mixes before. The Connoisseur is the best of the best. The Connoisseur and the Coco Forest actually have the same food blend. The Coco Connoisseur is a 70-30 cocoa peat. It actually has 30% more pumice than the Coco Forest. So with the Coco Connoisseur, what you're basically getting is the same food mix as the Coco Forest. You're just getting a peat cocoa blend. One of the benefits of peat is actually the natural acids that break down the plant can assimilate those. But the other thing about peat, it does help promote a better biological bed. The Coco Connoisseur is our most engineered blend. And so if you want more drainage and you want the best of the best, it would be the Coco Connoisseur, or the Coco Forest is damn good. I mean, it's still better than any of the mix that we currently carry on our shelves. So the food that you're gonna get in the Connoisseur as well as the Coco are very similar to each other. You're just gonna buy the Connoisseur if you want more drainage and you just want basically the creme de la creme, the best of the best. But let's talk about the food content in comparison to the Air Max, because the Air Max is obviously quite different from these two. So the Air Max actually doesn't have the same organic food content as these 2 blends. This is really for the gardener that's a hydro gardener, high EC, feeds heavy, wants to be able to have all of the available feeding that he's gonna put into his nutrient mix available to the plant. The Air Max is really just the quadruple wash Coco Coir, which again, the Coco Coir is very unique in all of these blends. It's basically one of the best sourced cocoa fibers. Then they let it sit in the natural rains for a season and let it just naturally shut off anything that might be left in the Coco Coir from when they get it. Then you do a last wash where they wash the cocoa with filtered water from their facility, and then they add a calcium carbonate, which is a natural calcium to help mitigate a lot of the calcium issues that plants typically have growing in a cocoa medium, being the fact that that's one of the things that you're typically supplementing into your mix. They're already buffering that for you. If you notice different consistencies batch to batch with other blends, you'll never see that with Air Max. So it has the quadruple wash cocoa fiber, it has perlite, it has the Paramagnetic Rock. So as you're feeding a lot of high EC formulas, there's changing the conductivity at the root zone. This Paramagnetic Rock is not only going to act as a drainage source, but it's really going to keep the conductivity balanced so that the plant's assimilating the nutrients as fast as possible. It has mycorrhizae, so it has basically the root inoculant already in it, ready to go, and it has humic acid and seaweed. So the Air Max is obviously a mix that's very similar to others. It just has a quality level that we haven't seen up until now. And then we have the Coco Connoisseur and the Coco Forest. The Coco Connoisseur and the Coco Forest both also have the same source of cocoa. Its next item that's very important to talk about is the Diatomaceous Earth. There's actually Diatomaceous Earth in all 3 of these mix. They add that to, 1, keep the mix light and fluffy. Diatomaceous Earth is actually used when there's heavy clays in the ground, and they use it to break up the clay. What the real benefit is for Diatomaceous Earth for a grower at home is that it helps mitigate pests at the same time. So it'll keep soil loose and broken apart, but it'll help mitigate pests. We actually sell Diatomaceous Earth in our store here as a top dressing for customers when they have fungus gnats, or they have, more importantly, root aphids. The Diatomaceous Earth does a tremendous job of knocking those guys down and keeping them out of the medium, and they're giving that to you in the mixes here. The next one that I want to talk about is Alaskan humus. So there's Alaskan humus actually in all 3 of these bags as well. The Alaskan humus is another source of biological activity, including the earthworm castings. So the Alaskan humus and the earthworm casings are both creating a nice source of bacterial biology for the bags. And that also goes back into why these bags have so many holes in them. they need to breathe. There is a lot of biology with the fungi and the bacteria. There is so much biology in these bags, which is going to really speed up the plant's process of getting into the mix, feeling comfortable, getting access to the food when there's food available, and it's really just going to create this symbiotic relationship with the plant that's going to be probably a situation you might not have seen before with any mix you've used before. Worm casings, the actual worms, the earthworms that produce the casings for these bags are also really close to the facility, and they're not like a wiggle worm. They're not a really cheap earthworm casing. These actual worms are fed a lot of the ingredients that are in the bag, and they have a completely vegan diet. So the earthworm casings that go into these bags are actually as highly quality controlled as the mixes themselves. So this is the best possible casing you could find made or put into this mix. The next product is the feather meal. Feather meal is really cool because when it breaks down, it has a lot of proteins, a lot of natural aminos. Another aspect to the feather meal is you are getting a little bit of a nitrogen content done so naturally, but not to the level it's going to interfere with anything. It's food that's going to be eaten pretty quickly. The next ingredient is fish meal. Fish meal is really cool. Now for those guys that are like, okay, I need to have fish meal, you gotta wonder why. What is so great about the fish meal? It's a bone, but it's a fish bone. It's mostly cartilage. So being the fact that it's mostly cartilage, it's more of a protein base. So a lot of amino acids, when the plant is growing or it needs those natural benefits, when your fruit needs that natural taste or your plant's flower color needs to be that particular color, you're gonna get that from those amino acids, and you're getting that with the fish meal. The next product is the kelp meal. Now kelp meal is going to be a natural form of some organic natural hormones, totally natural. You're going to get basically an increased production with the kelp meal. You're also going to get really good root stimulation as well as good foliage development. The next one is Paramagnetic Rock. Now, I want you to go to your local hydro store and see if there's any blends with Paramagnetic Rock. You're not going to find that because it doesn't exist. We use the Paramagnetic Rock as a drainage source, but really what it is affecting the conductivity at the root zone. Conductivity is huge. You know that if you use a pH meter. Paramagnetic Rock creates a situation where you have the best conductivity at the root zone to maximize your nutrient uptake. For organic growers, it's great. It's kind of giving you a little bit of an edge. For synthetic growers, even better, because a lot of the heavy metals you have in your mix are actually fluctuating and changing that conductivity. So the Paramagnetic Rock is going to help to stabilize that. Very unique. Another one is going to be the limestone. The limestone is a natural source of calcium. It also helps to balance out the pH in the soil medium. The next one is mycorrhizae. There's tons of mycorrhizae. The mycorrhizae in here is uniquely different from the mycorrhizae you're going to get in a lot of the other bags. There is quite a bit in the bag, and these bags have a lot of holes in them, and you'll notice there's tons of holes. These white bags have a bioactive state that none of the other soils that we have. These bags actually have tons of holes. Once you go around it, you'll see there's tons of holes in the bag. They need that. Compressed bales of soil, if they say they have mycorrhizae and it's a compressed bale from another company, when you compress, not only are they not breathing, but they're also being affected. So if you ever get a compressed soil, know if it says mycorrhizae, there might not be anything really in there that's still able to be utilized. But so we went ahead and made sure that the mycorrhizae have the best effect in these bags, and that's why they're loosely filled and they have tons of holes in them. Now, this is a really exciting one. Bone meal. There's 2 pounds of bone meal in the cocoa connoisseur. There's 2 pounds of bone meal in the cocoa forest. Bone meal, calcium, tons of calcium. I mean, your plant, when you harvest a plant and you see a hollow stem, what that is lack of calcium. There is tons of calcium in these bags. You also have a great food source with that bone meal. Literally, your plants are going to be eating the soil. By the time your plants are done, you're going to notice there's a lot of soil gone because the plant's going to be consuming tons of the ingredients in here. Now again, you hydro gardeners or the synthetic gardeners, you can still utilize these 2 blends and feed a pretty high EC program or a full nutrient regimen. These is not going to affect, even though there's tons of food in here, it's slow release food that the plant's going to utilize when it needs. It's not going to be force fed that organic food, so it's still going to be okay to be used. I would still flush maybe once a week. If you're doing a synthetic. If you're an organic guy, this is the best thing that you could probably basically put your plants into. Let's take a look. You're not going to find green wood, which is actually going to stifle some of your biological production that we found in other lines. You're going to find that the soil blend is completely blended down as much as possible. It's very well balanced. It literally is going to be one of the most beautiful blends you've ever ran your hands through. All the way down in the bag. It's consistent all the way through the middle of the bag, all the way to the bottom of the bag. No rocks, no pieces of pallets, no sticks, no chunks of wood. I mean, literally, this is a boutique blend, but without the boutique price. So if you're an organic gardener, know you can feed from day one all the way to the end, and synthetic gardeners can actually feed from day one throughout the end. We have not seen enough food in any of these blends to really interfere with a mineral or hydroponic solution. We've had gardeners test it literally using the same feeding programs that are recommended for a straight cocoa mix and have not had any ill effects. If anything, they're actually seeing quality differences that they weren't getting before when they were using just a straight cocoa perlite mix. So we would like gardeners that are worried about the quality of their production, but also concerned over the yield to try out these blends, because these are going to be a really nice awakening to you if you haven't used these blends before. If you're a gardener that uses some of the blends behind us that you can see, let's just say that there's not really a way to compare these blends because of some of the ingredients, some of the information we provided in this video. You know, if you're a gardener that is looking to start out and wants a mix that is going to be the easiest for tolerance, and as well as give you all the values that a gardener that's more advanced would want, this is a great mix for you. Really, any of them. If you don't see any holes in the bags, how is the biology breathing? How is the soil itself, as it's composting, how is it letting that heat shed out? That's why these bags are done differently. We're not going to come out with a big compressed bale, because the biological activity, how bioactive these soils blends, is really one of the key components that makes it uniquely different than the other blends.